yard mowed, bush hog?
I've got the field bush hog.
Does that worry you?
It worries me to death because
Why is that?
I've got a young fella who's Hispanic, and he's great when he shows up. I mean, he really is a fine worker. But you don't know when he's going to show or when he's not going to show.
Is he a yard mower or a bush hogger?
Both. He does both of it. He does all of it. And so I've got no John Deere tractor that I bought in 1976. I've had it redone, rebuilt up at Athens 2 years ago. And an old 4-foot bush hog, and he gets out there and cuts it. And but keeping the equipment going is what.
That's what farmers have problems
That's
with.
right. Yeah. And when you're this time of year, they don't have time for you. Well, we can see you in 6 weeks, you know. Well,
Why did you even have to have it bush hogged? Why not just leave it?
I don't want it to look good. I want it to be pretty. I'm thinking I'm going to try me an old farmer and see if he'd come and bush hog it and put it up. And hey, it's good. It's ryegrass.
What have you normally done?
Well, at first they just grew wild down there, and I'd have it cut once a year. But then I got a new bush hog for it, and we started cutting it 3 times a year. So we've killed out all the briars and the bad stuff. There was even wild asparagus growing in there, and so all there is ryegrass. Now it'd be pretty good hay, you know.
Can you eat wild asparagus? Or
Well, there's some fellow that driving down the highway came up to our house and told my son Randy, said, "You've got this wild asparagus. Could I pick some and eat it?" He says, "If you'll bring us some." It's delicious, buddy.
Is it just like regular asparagus?
It's much better than regular asparagus. It's much more tender, got more taste. Because, you know, it's come straight out of the field instead of being shipped in. It's very good.
How does it get there wild?
I have no idea. And how he knew it was wild, I don't know.
Yeah, how'd he know?
I don't know. But somebody did, just driving down the highway.
I like asparagus, but it has some after effects.
It makes your urine, so it makes about 20% of the people's urine have a funny smell to it.
Why 20? I'm one of the 20%.
Well, I don't know, 20 or 30. Well, I was asked that many times when I was practicing, and I didn't know, but I've Googled it. And it's aspartamic acid or something like that.
So it doesn't mean anything good or bad, nothing?
No, it's just some byproduct of the asparagus.
When did you start practicing urology?
Well, I started my urology residency in 1960. I was 26 years old. That was the University of Tennessee in Memphis.
Why urology?
Well,
I guess you asked that.
I
I bet you have more jokes than any.
Oh Lord, we have more jokes than any other specialty, and probably the crudest jokes that you can have. You know. I thought I wanted to be a general surgeon, and so I came to Erlanger to do general surgery residency. And I was down there about a year, and I realized the young general surgery residents were starving to death. I saw one guy do 2 cases in 1 year there. Came in, he'd trained up in the Northeast. But the urologists were just operating right and left, man. They were doing cases every day, and I got to helping them. And I decided this is good surgery and get good results. I think I'll be a urologist.
You mean like vasectomies?
Well, back in those days, that was almost taboo. Of course, now we do them in the office.
Yeah.
But primarily prostatectomies and removing kidney stones and maybe cancers of the bladder, cancers of the kidney. Some of it's pretty big surgery.
I guess.
Yeah.
Well, you weren't from Cleveland?
I was born as my old friend Bobby Bennett, Dr. Bobby Bennett used to say, I was born and reared in Bradley County. I was born on the farm up here where the country club is.
You know, that is a dumb question because my uncle told me, I knew that. I knew he was from Cleveland. But did you know Jack Ornby?
I played, if he's the one I'm thinking about.
It's the one. He said he was a captain of the team, or you was captain of the team?
I played basketball with Jack Ornby. He was a year ahead of me. And he was captain of the team in 51, and Hoyt Teague and I were co-captains in 1952.
You and him were co-captains?
Hoyt Teague and I.
But what about...
Ornby graduated a year before me.
Do you know that he's back in Cleveland?
That's what somebody told me. Is he kin to you?
Oh, it's my uncle.
He's your uncle?
That's my mother's brother, Jack Ornby.
then you're kin to the Hills. You're kin to Don Hill.
Don Hill
yeah, Don
and
what is her name? Anyway,
Pearl.
Gail and
Don.
Don was a great football
Don was friends with Roy, my other uncle.
player. Is that right?
Yeah, Roy Ormby. And
Well,
Don Hill were like best buddies.
There were a lot of really some fine athletes named Ormby. In the 1940 basketball team, the center, Watt Ormby, he made All-State. Watt Ormby, and he played that 40 and 41. But anyway, there were a lot of Ormbys who played during the early 40s. And
What was Jack like?
Jack was a good fella, really a nice person. He wasn't like me and my friends. He was a good person. He didn't cause trouble and get in trouble.
He worked
all the
at
time.
Toby's.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that, but he did.
You remember him working at Toby's?
Yes, I do.
Does that seem like yesterday?
Yes and no. You know, it really. You wonder where did all the time go, but yeah, I remember those early days.
Was Jack pretty good?
He was a good player. He was very good. He had a brother that played, that graduated the year before, Jim, I believe.
That's who I'm talking. I said Roy. Jim was friends with Don Hill.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Jim and I competed for the center position. When I was a sophomore, I got to start sometimes, and he got to start sometimes.
Now isn't that a small world?
It's a small world. And I used to
Now
buy
what school was this?
Bradley. There was only one high school. No, there's two high schools. There was Charleston and Bradley, you know.
And you went to where in grammar school?
First grade, I went up to Charleston, and I had a wonderful teacher up there, Miss Mary Emily Shelton. She had us memorize John 3:16 and gave us a little Bible thing. Can you imagine doing that today? Them allowing that to do that.
They'd hang them.
Today.
They'd hang them.
They'd hang them, but that's the most fundamental thing about the Christian religion.
Yeah.
What she had us do. Anyway, but for some reason, I think politics that we never figured out. My dad was principal up at Charleston and the basketball coach for 10 years and principal. He hired Tip Smith up there, gave me his first job, and Tip was a boys basketball coach and a football coach at Charleston. But then they transferred my dad to Bradley, and Tip was the principal at Bradley. That was in 41, 42. And Tip decided to go get his master's degree, and Dad was made the principal at Bradley High School during World War II. He was the principal from 42 to 46.
Now Tip moved to Athens. I met him in Athens.
Tip went up there Mayfield's heart got him hired as a basketball coach at Tennessee Western. And then he became the athletic director and brought in Buddy Cates, who coached basketball up there for some years. Buddy was a great basketball player for Bradley. First guy I ever saw dunk a basketball was Buddy Cates. He was about 6'6", and he played up at Western Kentucky.
Now, how do you go from the guy in school that gets in trouble to being a doctor? I mean, what were you good in school, or was it just a?
Well, I was thinking about this. I understand they had something for Bobby Scott last night, and Scott was in my class in high school. We played football together, same year.
42.
52.
52.
I'm not that old. I'm pretty old. But Scott and an old boy named Bill Bacon and I, we used to carouse around a little bit back in high school and college days. Scott wasn't always a damn angel either. He wasn't always as calm as they made him out to be down there Friday night, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't tell this. Anyway, one night I remember it was New Year's. Bacon and Scott and I were at the old place called Curly's on the corner down there. And we were drinking beer and we were trying to spell out our initials, CK, with beer bottles, and then BS, Bobby Scott, and then BBL Bacon. And
Yeah.
I got in trouble when I got home that night, let me tell you. But anyway, I guess we settled down, you know. But we weren't always angels, but.
But what happened? I mean, you don't just accidentally go to medical school.
Well, I had two uncles and a bunch of cousins that were dentists, and I thought that I didn't know what I was going to be. It's another interesting tale. Everybody wanted to be an engineer back when I was in high school. So I asked my dad, what do different engineers do in chemical and civil? Well, civil engineers build bridges and roads and all that. So that summer, a bunch of us, we dug ditches for the city of Cleveland. My dad was paying me 50 cents an hour up on the farm, and you're getting paid $1.25 to dig ditches down here for the city of Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And there's a bunch of high school boys in that outfit. So they were building the new, well, it was a new hospital in 1952. And they were building a new hospital, and this Earl Gillen says, well, Kyle, aren't you going to be an engineer? I said, yeah, I'm thinking about it. He says, well, they're surveying the water lines for the new hospital. Why don't you go out there with some other guy named and help them? So we went out there and we were having a heat wave. Temperature is about 100 to 102 every day. So we went out there and we would hold a stick for this guys down there doing all this stuff, you know. And he said, said, I forgot to bring any water. Well, then later on, I said, I don't believe I've ever been as thirsty or hot in my life. And anyway, so it was about time that we'd go in at 5 o'clock. He said, well, we're so close to getting done. Why don't we just stay here and finish up doing this? So we stayed another 2 hours. And finally he said, boy, I really am thirsty. You reckon they got any water up at that hospital? And so we went up there, and these guys working on the roof, they said, well, they put in the water fountains 2 days ago, but I don't think they've hooked them up, but you can go try. So we went in. I've been over that water faucet, and the best cold drink of water I've ever had in my life. And as I was drinking that water, I said, I don't know what I'm going to be, but I sure as hell ain't going to be no damn civil engineer, you know. So, but anyway, so I decided I'd go to dental school. And, so,
did you have the grades for it?
Yeah, I made pretty good grades. I did. I made good.
Did you study?
Not in high school.
But you were.
When I got in college, I had to study. Yeah. There's another still. I was over at Tennessee Tech on a basketball scholarship. This boy named Whitey was from Nashville, and I'd been there about a week. And I was talking to him. I said, "Man, I don't understand." He says, Kyle, you're not in Bradley High School anymore. He said, you go get you a clipboard and some notebook paper and put it in that clipboard, and you take notes of everything that guy says. And he was talking about a biology teacher. He says, Dr. Pennebaker, if you'll just write it down and learn what he says. So I learned to study really there over my first year.
Did you really, you didn't fool around much, it was business then?
No, we fooled around a lot. We fooled around, but anyway, I studied enough to make good enough grades to get in med school, yeah.
Well, that was hard to get into at that time, wasn't it, or was it easier?
Well,
would it be easier to get into it today?
I believe it's easier to get into it today. They treat them better in these days than they did. My son went over to UT Memphis also, as I did. And I remember we started out, we had 42 people first quarter. One guy passed, but he was over there sticking your finger, had to do a blood smear. He passed out, fainted on the floor. sounded like somebody had dropped a sack of fertilizer. Anyway, he passed, but he didn't come back. But they flunked 6 out of 42. 7 people out of 42 in the first quarter didn't make it to second quarter. Of course, some of them repeated and did get through.
What do they do then? Become dentists?
Well, some
wasn't that the old joke?
Well, there was one guy lived in the old Phi Chi house that was in dental school. He had started out in medicine.
That was an old joke. If you can't be a dentist.
But he really was.
No disrespect to dentists.
I know it. I understand that. I had a bunch of people in my family that were dentists. So yeah.
Did you? Were your residency? Did you get to pick to be an Erlanger?
Well, I was shopping around, and I did get to pick to be at Erlanger. Yeah. Erlanger's come a long way since when I was there in '59 and '60 as a surgery resident. They're affiliated with the University of Tennessee now.
You think we need 2 hospitals here? Well, I know we got Cleveland Community, right? But
Well, yeah,
what was the rumor? Erlanger's trying to come.
Erlanger was trying to come. I make a lot of people mad if I say too much. I'm an old doctor, but probably we would have, if Erlanger had come in here, the competition would have been much more intense, I think. And I think the medicine would be better if you have competition. I think, yeah. Short answer.
Generally, everything's better with competition, right?
What?
Generally, everything's better with competition.
Generally, yes, yeah. And the short answer, yes, I think we'd been better off with Erlanger in here.
But they have to get a certificate of need or something like that?
Certificate of need.
Now, why is that you'd have to? I know you have nursing homes. You have to get a certificate of needs, and
Well, I learned a lot about that because Eddie Duncan and I played a pretty big role in this surgery center in Cleveland, and then I was involved in that one in Athens, and we fought the politics in Nashville for the certificate of need was really intense, and that's the way that they keep down competition.
because why would there be a? Who cares if you're going to go into private business? What would it matter if we have a need if you want to do it?
Well, that's the way it ought to be.
But that's not the way it is.
But that's not the way it is. Certificate of need is a method of controlling what's in a community.
It's not seeing if you have a need.
Well, it's supposed to be that way. Certificate of need.
But why would they care? Why would they care? I guess if you didn't have any need.
Well, but why would you want? Why would let's say Bradley Memorial? They're not there anymore.
Yeah.
Why would Bradley Memorial want another hospital?
They wouldn't, right?
That's right. So if they've got the political pull in Nashville to influence the people on the certificate of need, a lot of times it doesn't get approved. You know?
Whatever it is, Bradley County didn't get one, right?
We did get the surgery center.
Oh.
Oh, that was a real fight, boy. But they got it. But I believe Erlanger was trying to get a certificate of need to pull a satellite here.
Yeah.
I believe that's what it was.
Yeah.
And they did not get it, and that was political.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had to be, didn't it?
In all probability, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you have trouble seeing blood? Did you never have trouble seeing blood? Or did you get over it?
Well, I got over it. I remember I went over to med school with, there were four of us. We left Tennessee Weston in the same class. One of them, Dr. Danny Hayes, he lives up here behind the country club. And my real good friend, Dallas Anderson, he was killed in a car wreck on the way back from Memphis in his fifth quarter. But they all wanted to go over to the emergency room at the John Gaston Hospital. We'd been there about 3 weeks. So we went over there, and back then they didn't have air conditioning, and there was this woman, somebody had hit her in the head, it split open, and the guy was down there scraping between her scalp and her skull making sure there wasn't any glass or anything. And I was standing up there looking at it, and I thought, you know, I may be in the wrong business. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that it.
Was you doing the scraping or was
No,
somebody
I
else?
was just watching.
Just watching.
I just arrived. But I was a little queasy, but you get over it. After you dissect cadavers and work in the labs and everything, you adjust.
Well, they have like you say work on cadavers. I know a guy that when he died, instead of having a funeral, they just shipped him to somewhere like Vanderbilt, and they use him for. They're probably cutting on him right now.
I know a couple of doctors that did that with their bodies.
Is that a good idea for the?
Somebody's got to. You got to learn on. Well, that's another thing. You go to med school, and about the first week, you walk into a big room, about 3 times as long as this, and there's these metal tables, and there's bodies on all of them, you know, all of them in different stages of dissection, and you got to pick out one. And I had my cousins who had gone to the dental school said, be sure and don't get a fat cadaver, you know. So we picked out a big muscular guy, and back then, when my first cousin went to med school, was up at Knoxville, Bill Gardner, they they had anatomy for 9 months on the cadaver, dissecting out the cadaver. We did it for 6 months, and when my son Chip was there, they only did that for 3 months. So they have de-emphasized anatomy, but you work on, and it's sort of a, it's especially when you go to eat lunch.
Yeah.
Because you got formaldehyde on, these bodies have got formaldehyde on them. Don't make it, and you're working with them, it doesn't make any difference how well you wash your hands. You're still going to smell that formaldehyde, you know. But after about 3 weeks, you get over that. You just go.
And then you're cutting meat like you would cutting meat. It's just an animal instead of a body.
Well, you're dissecting out muscles and stuff.
What if you got in there and they brought you a cadaver and it was somebody you knew?
Well, I have heard of that happening, although I never saw it myself.
Because that would be a coincidence. Yeah. But, you know, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Yeah.
How long do they keep these bodies?
Well, they claimed that down at UT anatomy building that my cousins who had been there said there was a big vat full of formaldehyde, and they had these bodies floating in that vat of formaldehyde. And when it was time for a new class to come in, they'd come in there with a hook them out of the formaldehyde, pick them out, take them upstairs to be dissected. That's so.
God.
That's how they. I believe that's how they.
That's disgusting.
Well, that's just part of it.
But you have to work on stuff like that, I guess.
Well, now I guess they're doing. You know,
wonder how long they'd keep the body there.
Yeah, I guess you
mean, 20 years.
Probably keep it there forever if it's floating in formaldehyde.
What's formaldehyde?
Formaldehyde's a preservative. It's strong. You know.
What does it actually do?
Keeps the meat from rotting. I don't know what exactly the mechanism is.
If you keep it in there, it won't rot.
That's right.
But formaldehyde would kill you if you ate it.
Oh yeah, formaldehyde kill you, sure.
Isn't that something that'll keep your body from rotting, but it'll kill you if you eat it?
Oh yeah,
you think it'd be?
You know, we would not want to ingest it or have any.
That's what they embalm with, right? Formaldehyde.
Yeah, that's what they embalm bodies with.
Now, what about these body farms where they go and put the bodies out in the field and watch them?
Well, the only place I've ever seen that was up at University of Tennessee at Knoxville. My oldest son Chip used to go over there. He's a radiologist now. I believe it was Dr. Bass was the fellow that was head of that department up there. And really, well, I guess it's sort of like, you know, it is forensic pathology.
Forensic pathology,
to see what happens to bodies with different periods of time, so that when you find a body, you can estimate the time of death and how long ago that happened.
I wonder if this is, I'm sure it's fenced in.
Yeah, it was.
I wonder how many acres.
It didn't look much bigger than maybe twice the size of this room, you know.
Oh, so it wasn't like they had a...
No, they had 3 or 4 bodies out there.
Oh,
yeah.
I pictured it. They just had them in all different stages, laying around, documenting.
But no, it wasn't that way. I only saw it one time.
So the body farm would just be a size of this room, maybe.
Yeah. Or that was the way I remember it. I only drove by it, looked in, my wife and I, and went on. You know. So.
Did you when you went to Erlanger, how come you didn't just stay there?
They didn't have a urology residency. That's pretty specialized. You've got to go to a center. I mean, something like a university to do that. Excuse me.
Where'd you go?
I went back to Memphis. Went to med school.
When you decided, hey, this is what I'm gonna do.
Well, I applied to Oxford Clinic and went down to Grady and I applied at UT. Of course, I'd done my internship at UT, Memphis. And Oxford said, well, go on to do your service time and then come on by here in 2 years. And I got a call from Dr. Sam Raines. He became president of the American Urological Association. He says, Costas, I've had a fellow that's been drafted in the Army and I've got a vacancy. He says, you can start in June. So I wasn't really ready. I thought I needed to go get some money somewhere, but anyway, I took it.
That was just the residency.
That's a residency. And you in Memphis. He was head of the urology department at the University of Tennessee, Memphis. Yeah.
Boy, that would still be an unusual. You knew that at the time that was where more the money was, right?
I didn't know that it was so much the money, but I knew that they weren't that they had something to do, that they weren't just sitting around twiddling their thumbs, that there was a need.
Because the general practitioners, there were so many of them?
Well, just for general surgeons, which I first
yeah.
thought about doing. Another thing I thought about doing was ear, nose, and throat, and they tried to get me to stay in Memphis after I'd finished my internship. They said, we'll let you start the residency and you'll be out in 2 years. If you wait another year, you're going to have to go do a year of surgery. They were making it longer. And I really thought about it. I'd probably been better off financially if I'd have done that. But anyway, I liked the general surgery type thing, and urology was very much like general surgery, except, more.
You did both.
You did both, yeah. Yeah.
What year? 1963?
1963, yeah.
I was -2.
You were -2 at that time?
Yeah.
Well, that shows you how old I am.
And me too.
And how young you are.
Yeah. Does it bother you getting older?
Yeah. Everything, nothing works anymore. But anyway.
You think there's a hereafter?
Well, you're getting deep now. Yes, I do. I do.
You think it's what we've been taught, God in heaven?
Well, my mother's people were very religious, and I was brought up in the church, and I hope so. And I think so.
There's got to be something, right?
Well, maybe not. Maybe we're just like dogs and cats. We just die, and that's the end of us.
But we would have to say all of this is an accident,
All
right?
is an accident, and just by accident we happen to be on this planet,
Yeah, there's got to be a higher power.
Well, I think so. I've had so many close calls with death.
Well, you have had it. I remember one of them when you were supposed to be dead.
Yeah, down to Erlanger. I was in there for 2 months and 10 days. And I turned the tractor over when I was 17 and jumped off of it with about 1 second. I don't know. I don't understand how I accomplished that, but I knew it was going, and I jumped, and the wheel just turned the tractor completely upside down. The opposite wheel hit me in the back, knocked the breath out of me, and then I turned this way and took the one machine blade in the left side. So,
what did it do? Just scrape you or what?
Oh, it stuck some places that deep in my shoulder,
What'd you say?
arm, and
What'd
back.
you say?
Well, my breath was knocked out of me from that wind. From that, I just able to crawl over to the ground and lie down till I got my breath back. There was no boy named Joe Lay that was there with me. He came running over. Kyle, are you hurt? Are you hurt? I couldn't even talk to him for a little while, But anyway.
Tell me more about that. Who is this Joe Lay?
Joe Lay, well, there was Lay 5 and 10 cent store.
Was that Ken and Ed's?
First cousins, I believe. I believe they're first cousins. They had the 5 and 10 cent store. They had stores down in Georgia and a few some in North Carolina here.
They were like the precursor to Walmart, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
They were in the Cleveland Mall, I remember.
They were in the mall. Yeah.
They had Cokes for 8 cents.
Did they? Well, it was.
They were little bitty Cokes. Fountain Cokes.
Oh.
8 cents.
8 cents.
I don't know if it was a lost leader or what, but.
Well, I remember the Cokes were 10 cents when I was 5, 10. I barely remember 5, but you get it.
But that was a canned Coke, right?
Yeah, and mostly bottles in those days.
Where did you buy them at on that end of town?
Well, probably there was a little old country store there where Bellefound is, and you go over there, go to that little place and get them.
Was it on the corner?
Yeah.
Was there a church there where the church is now?
On the opposite side from the church.
In the hole?
Well, as you start up that road, it used to be there.
Oh.
I believe the people named Haney, I believe, had owned that store. And you can go up to Boland's store up at Charleston.
Bose?
Boland.
Is it still there?
No. There were two brothers. They had a store in Charleston, and the other one was over in Calhoun. No.
What's there where their places were?
You know where the old part of town in Charleston is, the old Highway 11? The Baptist church has taken over most of that property. And then there was a road that went back in behind where that house where Sherman supposedly stayed during the war.
Yeah.
There's a road
Henniger House.
There's a road back in, Henniger House. There's a road back in behind there where the Boland store was. Yeah.
So was that the main road then?
That was the main drag, yeah.
That was Market Street.
That was Market Street, yeah. And I remember when they were built, I guess right for about the time I started first grade, they started building that road, which is still where it is.
You know, it still says you can still drive down that road. It's got the speed humps on it now.
Yeah.
But that was the main. Did it stay? Was it pretty well the same way until it got there, and then they went to the left?
Yes, that was it. That was the main.
So all the way from.
That was, I believe. I have been told that the first concrete highway was Highway 11, built there in McMinn County, from Athens to Charleston. There, I don't know.
Well, you know, when you turn off the road, when you turn off Highway 11. There's a stretch there. That road is concrete. Market Street, it's concrete for about 200 feet.
You're talking about that old road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonder why it was concrete.
I don't know.
But it's been concrete forever.
Yeah, it always has.
Yeah.
I think it's built about 1911, I don't know, 12 something. I'm not sure about that.
Did you start Tri-State Urology?
Tri-State Urology, is that what they call it now? I thought they called it Tennessee Valley.
Tennessee Valley, yeah.
Tennessee Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I came back here and I was the only urologist in Cleveland. And
what did they do before then?
they sent them to Chattanooga. Well, they did have a fellow here for a time named Dr. Barton, but he had died. And so anyway, I came back here. I remember one of the urologists in Chattanooga told me, well, you might make $1,000 a year if you go there. Anyway, I didn't know how to make a living. And after about 2 years, I didn't know whether I thought they were going to work me to death. You know, I was just working.
What did most people come for at that time?
Well, they'd come for kidney stones. I remember one week, about my first 6 months here, I did 4 kidney stones operations, and I thought, golly, what have I gotten into here? I can't believe this.
Yeah.
This is a stone belt. East Tennessee, Western North Carolina.
That's generally where people get
well, a lot of stones here. Limestone water, they think.
Oh, so that is what kidney stones
are. Most kidney stones are calcium oxalate.
I was always told that it was from drinking iced tea.
Well, that's oxalate in the tea. They said don't drink tea, and what else was it? Anyway, don't eat candies and chocolate because of oxalates. Now I don't know what the thing that does the most good probably is to force fluids every day. Drink lots of liquids. They say if you drink 3,000 cc's of some kind of liquid every day, that it cuts way down on the incidence of kidney stones.
How many is 3,000?
Well, what's 200? Old lay down's glass, which you don't see anymore, was 240 cc's. There's say 3. That'd be about 12 glasses a day of some type of liquid, you know.
But if you drink coffee, it's a diuretic.
Yeah, but it's
still liquid.
Still liquid, yeah.
So it really doesn't matter as long as it's got water in it.
That's what.
Because that keeps it mixed up and doesn't settle.
Keeps it dilute. You hope to keep it dilute, yes. Yeah. Excrete a lot of urine.
So if you go out somewhere where they don't have a lot of calcium oxide, do they have a whole lot less?
Well, they supposedly have a lot less stones, say, out in the West than we do here in the southeastern United States. I was listening to some guy at a meeting one time. He was English, and he was saying that, talking about liquids and stones, that when the British were fighting Rommel in the desert out there, where they couldn't get water and everything, said the incidence of kidney stones increased about 3 times, which is interesting. You know,
Yeah,
you know.
That's proof, isn't it?
Well, that's certainly suggestive. Yeah.
That's an old doctor trick, right?
That's no doctor trick. That's called evasion. There.
Evasion, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, these doctors could teach these politicians a few lessons, couldn't they? An evasion.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess they could. Some of them are very smooth talking these days. You know.
Where was you married when you started? What year did you start Tennessee Valley
Well,
Urology? What'd you call it then?
We called it Dr. Kyle. That's what we called it.
Who's we?
And then John Bryan, the guy that I trained with, had gone to Murfreesboro. And I went over and looked at Murfreesboro, and I probably made a mistake by not going over there with him. But anyway, he was in Murfreesboro, and I was in Cleveland, and we would talk back and forth over cases and what we'd handle this, what do you operate on that, and what do you think about how would you handle this situation? So we had stayed in close contact, and we were residents together for 3 years. We started and finished at the same time in Memphis. And so he had been, I guess we'd been here about 6 years. And he had a fella come from Memphis and go and practice with him. Now, I'd been on call, and he had been on call day and night and every weekend for 6 years. That was a killer. I had a chance to go to Knoxville. If I had any sense, I would have. But anyway.
So you was on call
every day and every night for 6 years.
In Memphis?
Here.
Here.
After I came here in 1963. But Brian had this fella in with him over there in Murfreesboro, and he'd been there about 6 weeks. He came into his office and says, "John, I'm leaving. I'm going back to Memphis." And anyway, his wife was Greek Orthodox. He says, "We don't have a Greek Orthodox church here, and my wife's not happy, and we're leaving and going back to Memphis." Brian called me up. He says, "You still want a partner?" I said, "Do I ever, you know?" He said, "Well, I'm not going back to being on call every day and every night after having somebody and being all, getting off every other weekend and every other night." So he came over and joined me. So there's Dr. Kyle and Brian, and then we brought in Steve Jackson later on. So it was Kyle,
Which
Brian.
is still there, right?
Yeah, it's Kyle, Brian, and Jackson. That's what we call it. Well, Brian and I retired. Jackson brought in McIntyre. They changed it to Tennessee Valley Urology. They moved from close to the hospital and built this building up here where they are now, and called it Tennessee Valley Urology. So it was not always Tennessee Valley Urology. It was Kyle, Brown, and Jackson.
But it's the same thing that you actually started.
It's interesting. I came back in 1963, and I was at my friend's house. I called the operator, told her what I was going to do. I'm going to open a practice. I need to get a phone number. She says, "Well, we'll just give you a phone." This says 23201. I said, "What?" Back then, a lot of they didn't say the first two numbers.
Yeah, because everybody assumed it was 47, right?
47.
Yeah.
She says 4723201. And that's the same number that they still have up there, 4723201.
Isn't that something?
63, whatever that is. It's,
the same number.
what is it, 37, 57, 58?
Along with other
58,
numbers,
yeah,
right?
58 years, yeah, same number. That doesn't happen very often.
That doesn't happen hardly at all.
No.
Do you think the specialist, what did they do before there was urologists? I mean, when did urology become a specialty?
I would say around 1910, so somewhere in there.
So it's not that new of a thing, right?
No, it's not. No.
I guess they saw a need for just a doctor just for that.
Yeah. General surgeons, I'm sure, used to do, and some of them still did when I first came out. They'd take out a stone every now and then if it was in a good location and very easy.
Yeah.
But the hard case, anyway, yeah, they needed someone who specialized in that. People got a lot better care.
Do they know where the stones are just through x-rays, right? Or is it ultrasound?
Well, in the old days, it was X-rays in my time, and then toward the end of my time, you could do ultrasound and just a plain X-ray, and if it was dilated, the urinary system, and you could see a piece of calcium, well, you could make the diagnosis. Now they primarily do it through ultrasounds and MRIs, you know.
Because a kidney stone's not going to hurt unless it's trying to come out, right? I guess.
Most of the time.
I mean, if it's just going around there, who cares?
Well, they can sit up in the kidney for a good while and be asymptomatic. You not know you got it, you know, till it drops.
And then when it drops,
when it drops, buddy, you know you got real problems. I've seen men turn as white as that piece of paper there.
I've never had one.
Well, you don't ever want one. I haven't either. I've been fortunate.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
You've been curing something you had never had.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that wasn't my weak link. Seems like everybody has their weak link, you know.
Some people have heart trouble. Some people have kidney stone trouble. Some people have.
Yeah, that's right.
What's yours?
Well, I have heart disease. That's the reason I quit. Had to stop practicing in '95. I had a 6-vessel bypass in 1984.
Was that due to diet or what?
Probably hereditary. The answer, dear Brutus, is in the genes. Well, the answer, dear Brutus, is in the...
What's a Brutus?
Well, I believe Shakespeare, maybe it was in one of his plays, maybe Julius Caesar, it says the answer, dear Brutus, is in the stars.
So he was talking to Brutus?
Yeah, but the answer, dear, I'm just paraphrasing. Oh. The answer, dear Brutus, is in the genes, probably, that you have, some people have hereditary tendencies to have certain diseases.
And that's all there is to it.
Well,
right?
No, stress plays a role too. There's other things.
The stress
I think it exacerbates.
Exacerbates.
I think it does. Yeah, I really do. Anyway, it seems like everybody's got to have a weak link somewhere. You know.
You ever read Poor Richard's Almanac?
I have.
It said he's known more old drunks than he has old doctors.
Oh, did he? And that's probably the truth.
And why would if that's true, why would that be true? Because they don't have the stress?
I think so, yeah.
Because I guess what he was saying was the doctors are supposed to know that the drunk's just happy, and happiness makes you live longer, maybe.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it right on the head there.
And if it's in your genes and you're happy and you don't have stress, the odds of you living to be 100 are fairly well, maybe, if you don't have those things.
Well, I see. Back in the turn of the 20th century, I guess 1900s, the 10s, the 20s, most people died from pneumonia and tuberculosis. Now we've got a cure for tuberculosis, and we can pretty well do pneumonia. So depends on what you got to treat it with. If my grandmother, who had died with tuberculosis in 1904, if they'd had the drugs in 1950, when she was sick 50 years previously, she wouldn't have died. So some of it has to do with what kind of treatment you've got available, you know.
And we can't say that we've found everything, because now we got this whole new thing of COVID.
Well, a new disease appeared with AIDS.
AIDS?
Now you got a new disease with COVID. So,
is there other new diseases?
There will probably be, don't you think?
Or do they just define them?
I think they're just finding them. I don't know whether...
I mean, define them. Do they just claim it's a disease?
You know, they were saying AIDS came from green monkeys over in Africa or something like that, you know? Mm-hmm. And maybe COVID comes from a lab in China or God who knows where, you know? But all these people before there were not sick with AIDS or COVID. This has to be sort of a new disease, I think. Now that's just...
And maybe it's a new disease because people are living longer. Something's going to get you.
You got to die with something, unfortunately. And it's just like Alzheimer's. Now you're seeing all this Alzheimer's. I think it's because people died so much earlier that they didn't live long enough to get Alzheimer's until now.
So if they find a cure for Alzheimer's, then and people start living to be 120, there'll be something else that kills them when they get that old, that we've solved Alzheimer's. Of course, Alzheimer's doesn't kill you, does it?
Yeah, eventually. But it's a slow process till you finally get so sick that you don't know to eat or drink or anything, you know.
So that's the problem. You just don't know to do it.
Yeah. It's my understanding, yeah. Well, unfortunately, I guess it's like the Bible says somewhere in there, you know, you're going to die.
It says you'll live to be 120, right? Something like that.
Well, at one time they did, didn't they?
Yeah, I think it says a man's life is no longer than something.
10, I believe.
10.
Yeah.
I don't know what that meant. Three scores.
7. Score's 20, so that means 70 years. I read somewhere, I don't know why I was Googling something, Moses lived to be 120, they said. Mm-hmm. Methuselah lived to be 900 and something years old.
Yeah.
But according to the Bible, man's lifetime has shortened considerably over
If you could live to be 900, you wouldn't be much count, would you?
If I could live to be 900 and healthy, I'd be wonderful. But if I could live to be 900 and be the way I am now with a walking stick and hobbling around, no, that wouldn't be much count.
Now, when you that night that I heard that you were rushed to the hospital and you were dying, what you had an aneurysm? What was it? Stomach aneurysm?
I had a ruptured splenic artery aneurysm. That's rare. That's as rare as hen's teeth almost. 1% of your aneurysms that rupture are splenic artery.
Hens don't have teeth, right?
That's right.
That's what.
So that's very, very rare. In fact, when I was a resident over in Memphis, I'd see these calcified splenic artery aneurysms, and I'd say, well, we better get a vascular surgeon. And the older guy says, splenic artery aneurysms never rupture. You don't need to see. You don't have to do anything about that. Well, I believed that till mine ruptured. Of course, I didn't know I had one till it ruptured. You know. So.
What do you remember? What's the last thing you remember before you had it?
Well, that was the night that we were having a board meeting at the Southern Heritage Bank.
You're on the board there,
and
right?
I was on the board, and they asked me, let's see, Duncan asked me to make a talk, and I did make a brief talk. And I was headed home. I thought, boy, I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna have me a drink, you know. And I go through the door and start down the steps, and it felt like somebody shot me under the left shoulder blade. And I realized things were getting foggy and everything, and I thought, I got to try to get home. And so I started out, I threw my jacket in the coat and told Larry McDaniel and Mark what's his name, went on the McDonald's buy, and I started out down the road, and I realized I was in serious trouble, serious trouble. I saw the red light up there and thought, man, you got to think. And you know, there used to be an empty space coming down that road where that new bank is.
Yeah.
And I realized I was about to pass out, so I just decided, well, I'll just I'll pull into this and stop.
You felt yourself starting to pass out?
Yeah. I thought I knew I was about to die. I said a little prayer. I said, Dear Jesus, let me live. But if I have to die, forgive me for my sins and save my soul. You really get close to the Lord when you
They
think
say there's no atheist in the foxhole.
That's right, no atheist in the foxhole. And so what I'd really done, I'd gone to that red light up there and hit that wall up there where that...
That's the last thing you remember saying the prayer?
I remember saying that and pulling the car off.
You said the prayer and then said, oh, shit.
Well, that all happened at one time. That all, you know, that probably happened in about 3 seconds, you know, because I knew I knew I was either going to die or pass out.
Were you hurting?
No, I wasn't hurting.
Just felt like you was dizzy?
I knew I was going to pass out. I knew I wasn't going to be there.
What's the next thing you remember?
Well, next thing I knew, there was some guy at the car door open, and he says, "Is your name Dr. Kyle?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, I know your son Chip. Do you happen to know his phone number?" And I gave him my phone, 715-3748. And so he was calling Chip.
Do you remember after somebody called the police?
See, I came back. My memory came back. I hit the fence. I was stopped. And I remember they were going to get me out and put me in a what do you call it? Not
Ambulance.
ambulance, but anyway. Yeah, and I says, you boys got enough to lift me out, you know? And they got me in there, and he said, Chip and I have talked, and we think that maybe we ought to get the helicopter in here and just take you down to Erlanger. What do you think? I said, I think that's a good idea. So the only other thing I remember the helicopter, you know. Mm-hmm. And then I was on the way down there. I knew I was on a helicopter for a brief second. And this guy says, well, I heard him talking on the radio. He says, well, his abdomen's getting distended and something. He says, I says, my abdomen getting distended? He says, yeah, you got any idea what's wrong with you? I said, I might have a leaking abdominal aortic aneurysm.
What made you think that?
I don't know. I just thought that, you know. And so with that distended abdomen, you're about to die. What else could it be, you know? Yeah. And next thing I knew, they took me out of the ambulance, out of the helicopter, and they had me in there. And I was in the hall getting ready to go into surgery. My son Chip was there, and he says, well, he says, what did he say? He said, well, you've got a ruptured splenic artery aneurysm. I said, splenic artery aneurysms don't rupture. I was telling him what I'd been taught in Memphis, you know. He says, you ought to see your CT scan if you don't believe that. So anyway, that's about the last
So
time.
you was there how long? 2 months?
2 months and 10 days.
Golly.
You don't want to be in the hospital 2 months and 10 days.
Were you going crazy? Would you watch TV? Of course,
Well,
you were about to die, right?
Well, yeah, I didn't know anything for about 6 weeks. They had me on a ventilator, I think, respirator for all that period of time. Mm-hmm. I've still got trouble. You hear how raspy my voice is, and I get choked and strangled very easily because it damaged my vocal cords having that tube down for 6 weeks, you know. My wife told me that she came and talked to me and whispered in my ear because she'd heard it subconsciously, and I do think that one time I heard her talk to me, one time. But anyway. What are we talking? We were talking about being in the heart.
Did you ever have any after death experiences or anything?
I did not. But I know what I was going to say. So, the first thing I knew it was night, and the light. I could see the light on street light out there, and I knew I was in a hospital room. And I said, "Marion, are you there?" And she said, "Marion, are you here?" She says, "I'm not here, over there." Well, I thought it was the same night I'd come into the hospital. I thought they'd operated on me, and I was waking up from surgery that night they'd operated on me. But it had been 6 weeks.
6
6 weeks. But
seemed like just.
I didn't know anything about it during that period of time, you know, except maybe she did whisper in my ear one time.
Maybe death's like that too.
I have thought that. I've wondered. It would have been very easy to have died in that helicopter going to Erlanger. I had no pain. I was at peace.
You'd already asked to forgive you for sins.
I was at peace. It would have been easy to have gone on at that time. Yeah, I thought about that myself. Since then.
Maybe it's not as bad as we think.
Maybe it's not. Let's hope not.
But he had to have saved you because you.
Well, he and that Dr. Dart saved me. He used Dr. Dart to save me. First guy butchered me up. I'm not going to say who it was. And Chip told him, he says, he's still bleeding. You've got to go back in. So they got to, thank goodness I didn't realize.
Because you had your stomach was still swelling, right?
No, they had gone in there and he had taken out my spleen. But what he had done, in my opinion, was pawed around and lacerated my pancreas. So they got the trauma surgeon in there, Ben Dart, and he went in there and took out the distal third of my pancreas and my gallbladder. Why my gallbladder, I have no idea. I asked him later on, well, if you're taking out all this, why didn't you just take my appendix out at the same time, you know? But anyway, that's what he did, and he packed me. A lot of times now, when they can't control the bleeding, they'll just pack it.
I remember that you was wearing shirts.
So they had me packed for 4 days, off for 2 weeks, and then he went back and then he put a little skin graft over it. And
where'd they get the skin?
Off my thigh. They took the skin off my thigh, you know. And then later on, I went back for a secondary closure about a year and a half later.
No more problems.
Yeah, they left me with a ventral hernia, but I wish I'd gone back at 6 months before that defect got so big, but I wasn't wise enough and didn't know enough about it. And anyway, when I get too irritated looking at this big belly of mine, I think, well, but you're not dead, and that's been what, let's see, that's been 14 years ago. So I've been given 14 years that most people wouldn't get,
14 years ago, boy, it seems like
yesterday.
5 years to me.
Yeah.
When did you get married?
I got married in 1958.
Before you started.
Yeah, I had one more. My wife married Dodd. It's from Helena, Arkansas. It's a little town on the Mississippi River about 90 miles below Memphis. And she was up in Memphis. And so we got married in March of 1950.
Was she going to school there?
She had gone to a business school up there and was a secretary. She was the sort of receptionist for IBM up in Memphis.
How'd y'all meet?
Well, she first started dating my friend. We went to I went to the Methodist church with him a few times.
With him?
With him and a guy named Danny Hayes, who's I told you lives back up here at the country club. And we met these three girls, and I saw one look like Elizabeth Taylor. And I was certainly attracted to one that looked like Elizabeth Taylor,
Yeah.
But Dallas liked Marion, and so I had him check on this son. He says, well, you're out of luck. She's married. She says she got a boyfriend that's already in 12th quarter, girl graduated in 3 months. You can forget about that, So anyway, but after Dallas was killed in a car wreck, we started dating. And I got married in March of 1958, about 3 months before I graduated from med school.
They say the 50s was the best time to grow up.
It was a good time. It really was.
What was better about it then than now?
Well, we didn't shoot people in crowds. I mean,
They wouldn't think about it.
We wouldn't have thought about anything like that,
Fist fight every now and then is about it.
Fist fight's about it. Yeah. In Memphis and the big cities, they would do some knife fights, But it was a time of peace. I mean, I believe he was until the Korean War was in the first part of the 50s, but by 53, old Eisenhower had been elected, and they got that settled, and so for a long period there was a period of peace. We didn't have any more trouble with until Vietnam.
Wonder why it was so calm then.
I don't know. I think old Eisenhower was a very good president and had control of really. I think the Russians and everybody else were sort of afraid of him. I mean, he was the head man of the Allies in World War II. And, masterminded that European theater.
What did they call him, Ike, or was that somebody else?
No, they called him Ike. I like Ike was
I remember watching the Waltons, and they always talked about Ike.
Yeah, they were talking about Eisenhower.
Yeah.
But it was a good time.
So, but then the 60s, it all went to hell, right? Basically.
Well, it seemed like it started about the late 60s. I guess when
not
the young people started burning the flag and rioting and raising hell about Vietnam, it seems like it's been downhill ever since, somewhat.
It really has, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Because the people that were at your age in the 50s, they wouldn't have thought about burning the flag, right?
No, that's a sacrilege.
Don't touch the ground.
That's right.
I remember you can't let it touch the ground. Remember that?
Touch the ground. That's right.
Had to fold it a certain way.
You had to fold it a certain way. You took it down at sundown, and
every sundown. They'd go outside and pull.
Put it up in the morning, take it down at sundown. Don't let it touch the ground. I couldn't believe it back when they started burning the flag. That's.
That was in the mid-60s, right?
I think it was, yeah.
All because of the Vietnam War, I guess.
Yeah, that had a big role, seemed to be I believe, the factor that really...
Reckon it was Nixon just...
It wasn't Nixon now. Didn't Nixon... I believe it was just getting started with, what's his name, Kennedy. And then it got real bad with Johnson. Johnson kept telling us we're gonna we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and we'll, you know.
And he really didn't do nothing,
Well,
right?
he wouldn't turn, like old Goldwater said, either get all the way in or get all the way out. I mean, old Senator Brock told Dr. Lowe one time, says, oh, we know how to end this war. Said, you mine the harbors and you blow up the railroads, but they were afraid if they did that Russia would come into it. Or that's what they said. So anyway, we didn't do what it took to end the war.
What was the difference between presidents up to that time till presidents later? It's almost like they were more, I don't know, just different, weren't they? Prior to the early 60s.
Yeah. They, I believe maybe it's now that the presidents listen to their, what people are reading, the feelings of the people. Like I'm groping for whatever the word is, but anyway, that they're out there, they're trying to please the people too much.
The masses.
That's it. They're trying to please the masses instead of doing what's best for the country. Yeah, that's.
But how could they get elected if they don't do that, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess that's right. Maybe back in the old days, there's some men who would rather be right than be president, you know?
I guess. Maybe that's it. Yeah. If I can't win this way,
If
I won't even.
If I can't do it
if I can't do it this way, I just won't do it.
I won't do it, you know? Maybe.
Maybe that's it.
That may have been a good bit of the difference.
And nowadays it's, well, if you can't get in, I can't do nothing anyway, so
I'll give them whatever, I'll give them whatever they want.
So you got what, 3 kids?
I have 3 sons, yeah.
Chip, Randy, and
Mark. Chip, Randy, and Mark, yeah.
That's a house full, isn't it?
Well, it was at one time.
They all gone now?
Well, Randy is helping take care of Marion and me, probably keeping us out of assisted living. Randy was an All-American swimmer at the University of Tennessee. Broke his hand. He was All-American at UT, but broke his hand about 1 week before the NC2A's his senior year, and missed 6 weeks of training. Got in the last 6 weeks and missed making the 1984 Olympics by 4/10 of a second.
Is that right?
That's how much he missed it by. And,
well, that would have.
That was tough, boy. But anyway, and Randy, he was a student coach up there for a year. Then he went to school for a year. So after 6 years, he got him a degree in psychology, and then he finally got him a degree in nursing down at UTC. And Mark is the youngest one, got a degree in finance at UTC and accounting at Tennessee Wesleyan. And he's a tax auditor. And then Chip, of course, went to UT Memphis to med school. So,
what do you mean tax auditor?
well, he does. Somewhere or other they check to see if people are. Well, there's all kinds of tax auditors, you know. But this one, what he does is make sure that the people pay their state tax, like when you buy something. Apparently, some big businesses just forget to report the tax. State tax. Sales. That's it. Yeah, sales tax. Yeah.
Not IRS auditor.
No, he's not IRS.
Yeah. Did you ever get audited by the IRS?
Oh Lord, no. But I had an accountant, and we made a mistake, and we didn't put something down. So for 3 years, I've been sending them more money over this, and I finally sent them everything that they say that I need to send. So hopefully that I have this all taken care of. But no, I've never had a real official.
So you're talking about recently?
I'm talking about recently, in the last 3 years, you know. Yeah, four.
I've been audited. It's bad.
That's what I've heard.
Bad.
They say if they ever get on you, they'll audit you for 2 or 3 years in a row.
Well, I ended up getting a refund.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so I don't think they'll be back.
Oh, they won't bother you anymore. That's right, yeah. Poor Dr.
It was bad, though. They go through everything. Everything.
That's what I heard.
I mean, everything.
Poor Dr. Heron got audited. They said, didn't they audit him for 3 more years after that, you know? Every year they would check
Well,
it.
I got a $3,393 refund after they were here 7 weeks.
Boy,
So you don't know if you're doing something wrong. You try to do it
do.
right, but you don't know if. I'm not a
You're not-
CPA or
no.
accountant. I don't know what to.
You don't know how to do the taxes.
No, I don't know.
I don't know how to do the taxes either. I mean, you
But I guess that's no excuse, maybe. When you were as a doctor, did you have somebody in the office do everything? Was you oblivious to the business side, or was you active in the day-to-day operations?
I was active. So I didn't go in there and check every day and see how many patients we had and how much money we made or anything like that. But I would sort of see where we were at the end of the month, I would say I was mildly active in the business part of it.
Were you just all day long just so busy with seeing patients that you didn't even have to?
You ain't got time for that other stuff, the business part of it. Or I didn't, anyway. And most doctors, I don't think do.
I don't think they do.
No.
I build for a lot of them, and if they don't, they've got usually a lady in the office that does just about everything for them.
Yeah.
From pouring coffee to
That's right.
making sure that they deal with the IRS.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have to have somebody like that.
Yeah. Or you'll pull your hair out.
Do you think that positive attitude though is a big thing of staying? I mean, you being a doctor, are you familiar with all sorts of medical stuff, or would you just be in urology?
No, I was pretty familiar with all of it because I did what they call a rotating internship. Now, they don't do that much anymore. They still have them, but in my day, you did a rotating internship. I spent 2 months on medicine and a month in a medical clinic, and what did I do? Then pediatrics, 2 months on pediatrics, then 2 months on OB, 2 months or 3 in surgery, or 4, and then the last 2 months after you'd been exposed to all that, they'd put you in the emergency room. And you were pretty well equipped to handle that because you'd been in all these different
You spent
fields.
2 months on a job. You're pretty familiar with it, aren't you?
You're pretty familiar with that. Yeah, and you can handle stuff pretty well.
But you could read a medical article, and I could read it, and you'd understand it more because you're in the medical field.
I think so. Yeah, but now they want you to do straight internship. They want you to pick out what you want to be, and if you're going to be a surgeon, they want you to do a surgical internship and just be there with them. And therefore, I don't think some of these young doctors are as well-rounded in the whole field of medicine as they should be.
It's like working with a plumber and thinking you know how to build a house.
That's right.
You would just know just plumbing.
That's a very good illustration. Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't make much sense. But this specializing in specific things seems like that would be almost a negative instead of just.
Well, you're at some disadvantage of being able to understand everything that's going on with the patient if they have something outside your field. I've got a granddaughter that's a doctor out there, and she's done now 2 months of emergency room residency. Now she's doing 2 months of a pediatric emergency room residency. Chip's daughter. She's going to have to go to a big city somewhere. I mean,
Somewhere.
If you're a pediatric emergency room specialist,
There'd have to be a big town to need
pretty
that.
good big towns. Of course, I keep telling her, I said, you need to come look at T.C. Thompson.
So an emergency room just for pediatrics.
Yeah, and I think Chattanooga's got one.
So
T.C. Thompson, I think's got a pediatric emergency room.
So if you was an adult and
would-
you had an emergency, they'd say, "No, sorry, we only take
They
pediatrics."
take you to Erlanger or Park Ridge or East Ridge.
In the helicopter.
Most of these helicopters go into Erlanger, and I don't know whether they go into Memorial or not. I would imagine they do.
Do you study much up on these artificial intelligence?
Not a lot. I've got a phone that's like a computer, and when I misplace it, I absolutely almost have a heart attack because it's got my retirement in there. It's got all telephone. Must have 500 telephone numbers that I've saved over the years. But so I know how I have most people, a lot of people that are my age, they haven't even tried to do a computer or any of that.
I can tell some people, I say, oh, I heard about so-and-so, you talking so-and-so, where do I find it? On YouTube. They say, oh, I don't know how to do that.
That's right. That's what they say.
And it's too easy.
Yeah.
It's too easy to do it, to not know how to do it.
Well, at least I know how to do some of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're pretty good at it, actually.
I know some of it, you know. But
do you think our phones, when will they put them in our bodies?
I don't know. You know, it makes me think of, you're not old enough to remember, but Dick Tracy, right after World War II, they had a two-way radio. They had a watch with a two-way radio, and they talked to each other and all that. Well, he was 50 years ahead of his time, but that's what this little telephone lets you do. You know, call anybody anywhere in the world now if you want to.
And you got artificial hearts, artificial limbs.
Yeah, yeah.
So when will they be able to just have an artificial person and maybe download your?
I don't know.
Download your personality into.
Well, clone you and put your brain in there.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're getting in deep stuff.
Think about that.
You're getting in deep stuff, Dee.
Think about that. If they could clone a sheep, they could clone me.
They could clone you.
Take my brain out, put it in a new person.
But they can't do that. They can't.
How come?
They can't. They don't know how to transplant the brain yet.
They can't transplant the brain? Is that the only the organ they can't?
Well, now I've been out of this a long time, but the first thing they transplanted was kidneys in twins, identical twins. They did that back when I was in med school, 1957. That was a big thing.
And they had to have medicine afterwards.
Well, no, because they were identical twins.
So what did it work?
They worked because there wasn't any immunological.
That was state of the art.
That was state of the art. And DeBakey came through there in about 57. He was a big hot shot down in Houston, Texas. And he had done the first aortic aneurysm replacement with a graft. And everybody, all the doctors in Memphis had come to hear him. And of course, as many of us med students as could get in, we did too. Now that was state of the art, but look how far they've come since.
Well, you had it on your leg to your stomach. I even glossed over it because it's so common.
Well, yeah. They've been doing that probably since 1930s, you know. Skin graft.
So what part can they not move? Can you have a fake stomach?
You know, you can reattach fingers and hands now, but I don't.
What about?
I guess the intestines.
What about?
And the brain, is my thinking. It's the only thing they haven't been, and the bladder.
You ever read the book, The Second Brain?
No, I have not.
Talks about the intestines being the second. They said the intestines is the only thing that operates independent of the brain.
Well, they say that the intestines, what is it, the probiotics and stuff that's supposed to be made by the intestines that affects the function of the brain. You know, I know about that much.
Now, wait a minute. Let's back up. So they say that the probiotics and the bacteria in the intestines.
They are claiming. Some people are saying, this is not proven, that there is some link between, what should I say, metabolites or enzymes or something produced by the intestine that may have something to do with brain function too.
Well, according to this book that I read, the stomach or the intestines actually thinks independent of the brain, and it was saying similar to what you're saying, that it actually affects the way the brain thinks, and that's what the Chinese refer to as qi, because it's always the inner, you know, because if your brain, if I already know what my brain's going to tell me I'm thinking, then how do I know that the brain's actually doing the thinking? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It does make sense. I guess the last thing we'll ever unravel is how the brain works.
You think that'll be the last thing we figure out?
Yeah. That's probably where the soul is, don't you think? Maybe, perhaps. I don't know.
I don't know. I had a guy on the podcast, Jerome Hammonds. He claims that the brain is just another organ, just like anything else in the body, and that the brain is controlling us just like the lungs would be. And that we're just a product of what the brain is.
Well, I would think that our personality certainly is a product of the brain, wouldn't you?
It'd have to be. That's the only place I know.
That's the only place I know, what you...
And the people get hurt in a car wreck and hurt their arms or their legs, they're still them. So unless you take it out between here and up, then it's still the person, right? So it's got to be isolated to the brain.
I think so.
But
I think so.
But if you could transfer the brain into another body...
Well, you could move you into another person if
Yeah.
you could do that, perhaps.
Yeah.
That ain't going to happen in mine in your lifetime.
You don't think?
No. I don't think you and I have to worry about that.
What would they have to disconnect? I mean,
They would have to learn how to, you'd have to connect the arteries.
You have to keep them.
You have to keep the arteries going to the brain, so you'd have to reconnect these arteries. And then somewhere or other you would have to reconnect your spinal cord to their the new spinal cord to the one that's got the brain. And there's
the problem.
There's the problem.
Because then you get into spinal cord injuries and everything.
And you can't do that. So far we've never been. You can't do anything about that thus far.
Why is that? Too intricate?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I guess it's sort of like cutting a pipe in two,
I cut a telephone wire one time building a building. The dozer man cut it, and I mean it were wires. There's no way you could get these wires back together.
Yeah.
So I would say that is more difficult than that.
Getting the function from the brain down to the spinal cord would be in my opinion, the most difficult part.
If not, you'd be like Darth Vader. They moved his head, I think.
Well, the way
But they may figure it out, right?
They might. Who knows? I mean, but that's.
But now that's different than artificial intelligence. Yeah. Artificial intelligence would be like just putting the phone in your body or having a screen up here where you can see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, that's deep. Do you wish you had another 100 years to see this stuff happen?
If I could be healthy. Oh, yes, if I could be healthy. But if I was old and tottery and worn out, no.
What does your normal day look like now?
Well, I don't know. It seems like there's something all the time. My wife, I've been having to do all the bill paying and the bookkeeping and keeping up. It seems like it's almost a full-time job to keep up the house and finances and all that kind of stuff,
But how did this happen while you was a doctor?
I had hired people who did it for me. Somebody asked me, what do you miss the most? I said, I miss those 4 secretaries that did everything for me. That's what I miss the most.
But they wouldn't do the stuff at the house. They would. No. So everything you do tomorrow would have been done through secretaries or somebody?
No, my wife took care of things in the old days for 61 years or 67, something like that. But she's not able to do that right now.
Does she ever go back home to, where did you say she was from?
She's from Helen, Arkansas.
Arkansas.
Yeah, she had a first cousin who became a doctor and went back there. And he died about 2 years ago, so she and my son went back to see him before he passed on. And I took her, she and I went back there about 6 years together before that. She occasionally would go back.
What was Helen, Arkansas a big town?
Well, there's a place called Helena and West Helena, and they're small towns. They'd remind me sort of like Athens and Etowah, maybe, or something like that. You know?
So if somebody tells you to go Helen back, you know it.
You go to Helena, Arkansas. That's right. That's right.
Is it Helen?
Helena.
Oh, Helena.
Helena, yeah, Helena. Helena, yeah. Yeah.
So she didn't her parents still live there?
No, her parents both came here.
Oh, they came here.
Many years ago, and they both been dead about 30 years. So they
So she doesn't have any reason to.
She doesn't have any reason to go back there anymore. You know, she doesn't really have any family there anymore.
She's real nice, isn't she? I know she's
a nice lady, very beautiful woman.
Yeah. How'd you end up with that? Just because you was a doctor?
Because I was such a good guy. No, just lucky, I guess. You know.
Was your dad had the farm there at Kyle Lane? Kyle Lane. That's the name of the road.
My grandfather bought that land. I was down at the courthouse one time, years and years ago, and I decided, well, I'll go. I saw these big old books over there. So I decided I'd go back over, and I got to look at the most beautiful handwriting you've ever seen. Anyway, I think he and my grandmother got married. His first wife had died, and got married about 1885. And he bought that land then shortly thereafter. He paid said according to this book, he paid $5 an acre for it.
How many acres at the time?
I think he bought about 380 or something like that. My mother and father had bought some little farms around them. But anyway, he bought that, and he bought it for the lumber on it. He was a sawmiller. So he bought it there to...
$1,500.
Well, $5 an acre, whatever that is, times... Yeah.
About $1,500.
Yeah. And so he had 3 sons, and one of them was a superintendent of school. Arthur Kyle died at 32, was buried over at Tasso, as are my grandparents. And he was superintendent of schools here in Bradley County when he died. And then Daddy's brother was a postmaster and the register of deeds, I believe, down at the courthouse. And he died in 1926 at 36. So Daddy was the only one left. And he bought his sisters out and took the farm. And he and my mother, they were sort of older when they got married. My daddy was, they got married in 1932. He was born in 1892. He was almost 40 years old when he got married. And he had been a coach and a teacher up at different places all around here and up at Elizabeth. And they put him in the Hall of Fame up there in Elizabeth. And he took Elizabeth to the state tournament, girls, 28, 29, and 30, and they won it in 29, state tournament.
What's significant about Elizabeth?
I don't know, but he loved it. But he came back here because the farm was here and his brothers were gone.
And then he bought them out? Or he bought them out before he went?
No, I guess I said, anyway, then he bought them out. And so he and my mother were there and they started the dairy, and he was a...
300-acre dairy farm?
About 380. By the time he died in 1965, he was 1955. He was 63 years old, just barely. And I believe they had 580 acres by that time.
But that started out from your grandfather.
Started out with my grandfather buying it for...
In 1895.
About 1895, yeah. He
paid $1,500 for it, 300 acres. Why did he, just for the timber?
He bought it for the timber.
Is he cut? That's why there's not many trees out there today, isn't there, I guess?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Because everybody's had it bush hogged since.
Yeah.
So here it is
126 years later?
126 years later, his grandson.
Hard to believe, isn't it? He was born in 1852.
He was born in 1852.
He was born in 1852. My dad was born in 1892.
He was born in 1852.
Yeah. I'm wrong. He was born in 1862. The Civil War was just starting, 1862.
In 1862, he was born.
Yeah.
And he bought this 300 acres. And his grandson, right, is sitting with me, who still has how many acres?
Well, when I had an airplane, I put all my wife's name. So anyway, we've got 25 acres left out there.
Why when you had an airplane?
Oh, I got an 182 and I rebuilt it. I spilled a fortune on that thing. I got my pilot's license. And
When was this?
Got my instrument rating. Oh, Lord, I bought that airplane. I was old. 5'9" Charlie Kilo. I was 59 years old when I bought that airplane.
5'9" Charlie Kilo.
5'9" Charlie Kilo. You got these identification codes, you know, when you're talking to the tower.
So what was yours?
Mine was 5'9" Charlie Kilo, 5'9" CK. I was 59 years old when I bought that.
What possessed you to do that?
Well, we went up to Alaska on a trip, and we were flying around to, what is that big mountains up there? They called it Mount McKinley.
Is that where John Denver died?
But they've changed, no. They called it Mount McKinley after the president, but then they changed it to Denali now, I think, so they put the Indian word back on it. But anyway, we were up around this twin-engine plane. It's got flying about far from here, that wall around there. I'm looking at the snow as we go around the top of it. And I don't know, when I was a little boy, I used to be sort of fascinated with airplanes, so I thought, well, I believe I could do this. So I went up to Athens. Nancy Daly from here was the head of the airport up there, and she got me to flying.
Was you just having a midlife crisis or what?
It must have been something like that. No, I just wanted to, I wanted to try to see if I could do it.
So you got your pilot license and got a plane?
I got a pilot license, bought a plane, and got an instrument rating.
What's the
hardest thing I ever did was go through med school. Second hardest thing was getting an instrument rating. You got to learn all kind of stuff about airplanes and communication, and VORs, and now you got GPSs. You know, I got.
But you can't have people flying up around here that don't know what they're doing, right? That's the idea.
That's the idea of all this stuff. Yeah.
So you became a pilot.
I did, yeah.
And did you have a hangar at the Cleveland airport?
Yeah, what was I?
Back in the day?
Yeah, I did. I forgot what that guy's was that ran it for so long. Nell was his wife's name, but anyway, I rented a hangar from him, had my plane in there.
How much was the hangar?
$75 a month, I believe it was. These poor guys out here at this new airport, I bet they're paying 10 times that much.
How much did the plane, so it was a twin engine plane?
No, it was a Cessna 182, one engine.
What does that mean?
Well, it's a Cessna.
So it didn't have the propellers on it?
Oh, it had propellers, but it's just a one engine plane. There's a Cessna 152, a 172, a 182, and a 206.
How many could fit in your Cessna?
Just four people.
Were they sitting like this?
Not that bad. Not that bad. You can sit like that, yeah.
What about, what's that guy, Dr. Visor? Doesn't he have one?
He does.
What's
he did back then. He used to have a Cherokee, a low wing plane. Mine was high wing, you know, where the wings are up on the top. That's what I had.
Why'd you have a high wing instead of a low wing?
Well, they say a Cessna is a very forgiving airplane, and I felt like an old man like me needed a very forgiving airplane.
What was it like the first time you flew by yourself, took off?
Well, I didn't think they was ever going to let me do that up at Athens. They just kept going with me. I think they were afraid to let me ever take off. And when you do it the first time by yourself, your mouth's pretty dry and you're sort of nervous, you know. But
did you pray then?
Yeah, I think I did. I don't remember.
How long? You don't remember how long you were up in the air?
Well, I just went up there and circled the airport and landed.
How long would that take?
Probably 10 minutes.
So it's not like they let you go to Florida.
No,
they just let you go up.
No, but then they start you on trips before you can get your pilot's license. First time I flew to Rome.
To Rome?
Georgia.
Georgia.
And the nice thing was it had a VOR on it, and you could take this thing and put use this. If you'd stay on that beam, it'd take you to Rome. But I just about knew how to get there anyway. But anyway.
What do you mean it would take you could turn the knob, automatic pilot?
They got a VOR. No, I forgot what a VOR means. Something direct, orbital direction or something like that. Anyway, you've got this radio in your plane, if you have this, and you would tune it into that frequency, and you would adjust it till it showed you what a straight line would take you to it. Say you flew 180 degrees or 182 degrees, 180 degrees.
Yeah, whatever.
Then you just fly 180 degrees, and it'd take you down to where that to where the VOR was.
And so the whole time you're talking to the guy at the Cleveland airport?
No.
Who are you talking to?
Nobody. You just talk when you're getting ready to land.
You don't talk when you're taking off?
No, you talk. You clear all that up before you take off.
So you
You
don't
talk to the tower, and the tower talks to you, and they tell you, taxi in position and hold, and then when your time says, Cessna 59 Charlie Kilo, taxi in position, hold, and then say, to take off. And you take off, you'd go up, take off,
Do you have communications with the Rome people, like in Rome, between
Well,
here and there, or do you wait till you start to get close and say,
Wait
I'm coming in?
Wait till you get close.
And you say what?
Well, usually what you do is you would talk to the people in Athens, and you would talk to the people at Chattanooga and ask them to track you.
Why?
So if you got in bad trouble, they could help you find someplace to land or something,
So in other words, like calling saying, I'm on my way home.
Yeah.
Telling somebody. So would they really track you?
Yeah,
Or would they just sort of like say, we got this guy
They'll
coming?
track you. They show you on your
That's
radar.
what they do.
So you got a transponder on there, and they'd tell you what to squawk so-and-so, and you'd put that in your transponder, that number, and then they could follow you on radar. They'd be following you on radar. You see stuff on television, all these little planes doing all this, that's what they're doing,
Air traffic control.
Air traffic control, yeah.
So if that guy's in Rome, Georgia, says, yeah, you can come on in, we don't have any other planes coming.
Well,
What if there's a guy?
By the time you get down there, you usually switch off of Chattanooga and say, in essence, I'm here, I'm ready to land, and they'll say, okay.
Don't land yet, we got another guy coming in.
Well, yeah, they tell you that, but they'd mostly say, they'd sign off with you. It's been a long time since I've done that. I've forgotten all the language, but anyway, they'd tell you to, switch to the Rome frequency. So then you would switch to Rome and start talking to the Rome airport,
Say, I'm coming in
That's
for
right,
landing. He'd
that's
say,
right, yeah.
hang on, I got another plane coming in, circle around, come back down.
Yeah.
You didn't have any wrecks or anything?
No, thank goodness. I probably wouldn't be here.
How much did that plane cost?
Artie, I don't know. I think it was. I think it's $59,000, but I spent about that much or more. I rebuilt that plane. I put a rebuilt motor in it. I pulled out the insides of it. I put in new radios. I rebuilt that plane, so I squandered a lot of money.
Now, Dr. Bird, he has a plane, right?
Yeah, he's got one of these, or he did, but was saved the other day by they hit an big airliner, and that plane that hit them, they hit. Anyway, he's got a parachute on it.
So Dr. Bird got hit by another plane?
No. Bird has an airplane like that
Yeah.
when it hit the other plane.
Yeah.
But the wonderful thing is, if you pull the chute opens up and parachutes the plane down to the ground. That's what happened at another airport here about 2
I've
weeks
seen
ago.
those planes.
There.
Yeah.
Well, Bird's got one like that.
What about these guys? How long did you have the plane?
Well, after I had that splenic artery aneurysm, after I had that bypass.
Oh, so you were flying up to then?
Yep. I flew about 10 days before I had that aneurysm.
If you'd had that aneurysm up there, what would have happened?
I'd have died.
There's no way, right?
No probability. The odds have probably been about 1 out of 100 that I could ever gotten it down. Yeah.
Well, you'd have passed out.
That's right. That's right.
That's why I don't like to fly with one pilot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you ever fly with one pilot?
I have.
But would you now after you had that?
I'd want to be young and healthy. Yeah.
Because if you're on a plane, there's only one pilot. The odds of them I mean, if they just get a stomach ache, they may not
Well,
get
now
you down.
usually you've got duplicate controls over here on the other side.
Who's sitting over? If you're just
But
one
if you-
pilot,
But if you've got another pilot over there, you're
but
all
if
right.
you don't have one,
Then you're in deep stuff.
would you? So you wouldn't recommend flying with just one pilot, unless you're just yourself.
I would fly one pilot.
And take the chance of
And
them not having the aorta.
Take the chance of him not having the aortic aneurysm or something. Yeah.
See, have you had the COVID shot?
Yeah,
I got mine Friday.
Well, I've
No,
had
Thursday.
First one or both of them?
I got my first one Thursday.
Do you have to get another one?
Yep, the
Okay,
24th.
So you're taking the Moderna then, probably.
Moderna. And
I was lucky, man. It was Christmas. I believe it was Christmas night, and I was looking at my phone, going to, that damn thing. I'm addicted to it. Anyway.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same way.
So anyway, I saw in there. Well, if medical people they were going to give shots to. This is on December 25th. I believe it was the night. It's going to be on Saturday. I believe on December 26th. If you're in the medical field, they were going to give it at First Baptist. Now, so I said, man, we're going to go. They probably won't give it to us. We got in that line all the way down to the YMCA and went up, how you do it. Anyway, we got up there and they said, this guy says, are you in the medical field? I said, yes, I am. He says, so we got our first shot on 26th.
Did you have to give me proof, or did you just say you were?
So, well, no. He just said,
say,
you're in the medical, medical field. But anyway, so we got it pretty early. We really did.
Did you get, I had Friday, Thursday, Friday, I thought, man, this ain't bothering me. But the last 2 days, I felt like I've got a little sore throat. I figure that's some effect. It'll probably be gone tomorrow.
Perhaps. What gets you is the second shot.
Oh, is that right?
That's right. Old Chip told me Chip had his.
Yeah. What did he say about that?
And he had the second shot. He had flu-like symptoms that night. He said, I finally decided to heck with this. I'm going to take some Motrin or something. I forget what. He says, and that did. And I went to sleep the next morning. I was all right. And he had asked around the hospital, everybody that had the second shot had symptoms. And I had some too. Now, Marion, she didn't have a bit. She didn't turn a hair.
Has anybody had symptoms on the first one but not on the second one?
I don't know that. But
somebody's trying to sell me a car warranty.
Somebody buy a car?
Car warranty. You get those calls.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Golly.
About 3 times a day. I've learned, I recognize them now in about the third word.
Yeah. And they'll sound like a person. They've got it now where it sounds like a person.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they can be sitting there talking to you and you say, but...
One of them started in on me the other day. Well, of course, then it's always about your charge card. That's another one.
Oh, yeah, and the IRS has got you.
And then the IRS,
yeah. Who falls for that stuff?
Old crazy people. They're calling me because I'm 87 years old and they think I'm crazy.
They think you're crazy.
But there are a lot of old crazy people that'll listen to this stuff and talk to them or they wouldn't keep doing this.
Somebody's got to be doing it, or they wouldn't keep doing it.
They would keep doing it. They're doing it to old people who are not completely there.
You're pretty well in shape, though. Do you do any exercising at all?
I exercise downstairs. I used to walk golf course all the time.
Do you think that this COVID is surely the second shot? I don't feel bad. I just feel like I've just got pollen. Like it's kind of like and that may be what it is.
Well, it could be that, but
I'm a hypochondriac. If I see somebody limping, I start limping.
You start limping like him. Well,
I met this guy one time, and he won the lottery, and he wanted me to build his something for him. So I went and met him at this restaurant, and we got out. I hope he's not listening, but we got out, and he limped. And I started limping. And he turned around and looked at me, and I guess he thought I was making fun of him, and I never heard from him again.
You didn't get that job, did you?
No, but I just started limping because he was limping.
Hey, Lord.
That's the truth.
That's true story.
That's true story.
Sure.
See, anything else? Everything good? You still in the plungers and hedgers?
I'm still in plungers hedgers. Are you?
Yeah, I just hadn't been.
Well, Not many. Haven't had many meetings, you know, because of all this COVID and everything. But
It's hard to get there on a Tuesday night when it's nice weather out.
yeah, that's right. But you need to come and start having us figure out how to get some young people in there.
Don't have it on Tuesday night during pretty weather.
Well, when would you have it on? When would you?
Well,
what night?
Good
what
point.
Night,
Good point.
What night would you?
Wednesday night, Monday night, Wednesday nights.
Wednesday night.
Things are calmer on Wednesdays.
Wednesday night probably a better time.
That's why they have church on Wednesdays.
What
See,
church?
Mondays
What
Mondays
church?
things go to pieces. Friday, everybody's wore out. Tuesdays, everybody's got the call from Monday and they can make traction. Thursday, they're trying to get it done before the weekend.
Before weekend.
So Wednesday, you got to. That's why they have church. But did they have church on Wednesday night when you was growing up, or did that start during the?
I'm a Methodist. We just barely have church on during the mornings.
Where'd you go to church?
Well, I used to go for Wesley for a long time. I go to Broad Street now.
Is that where Eddie Cartwright goes?
Oh, Eddie goes to Wesley and Sonny Hicks. So they go. They've been going over there.
Methodist.
They're the one that talked me into going over. No, they're both Church of God, but their wives are Methodists,
Oh.
so they go to the Methodist church.
Well, your family always been Methodist?
My mother's people were all Baptist.
So how'd you end up Methodist?
My daddy was a Methodist, and so we just went there.
Was your grandfather that was the logger?
He went to the Tasso Methodist Church, that pretty old church over there, you know.
You're really from that area.
That's right. Really from the Bellefonte area.
Bellefonte.
Bellefonte.
Right.
That's the way the French say
Yeah.
it, maybe.
Where was he from?
My father?
Yeah. No, your grandfather.
Well, I had a first cousin who was a dentist down in Birmingham, and he tried to figure all that out. He said he got back there about his generation, and one morning it looked like we all were bootleggers, came out of Polk County. So, but anyway.
You think maybe Polk County?
I think maybe Polk County, yeah.
Maybe his father?
Maybe his father. I got a hold of some woman out there at would have been, what would she have been? She would have been the second wife of a second cousin or something, and she had done a bunch of that stuff. So at least I found out that my great grandfather was named George, and
You mean your grandfather's dad?
My grandfather's dad apparently was named George Kyle.
But that would have been 1860.
I'd been back. Well, if one was born in my grandfather 1862.
So it would be at least
you're talking about 1840 or 1830.
That's almost before. That's almost when this was Cherokee territory.
We ran them out in 1832, didn't we?
Or 38, 32 or 38.
I forget.
That may be them calling right now.
We really screwed them over, didn't we?
Boy, we really did.
We really did.
We really did.
We ought to be a damn shame of ourselves.
We sure.
Yeah, we should. It's terrible the way that we're treated.
You want to give it back?
Yeah. Yeah. I sold.
We should.
I sold most of it, so yeah. No, I gave mine to my grandsons.
How many you got?
I mean, I gave mine to my sons. I'm sorry, my sons. Yeah.
How many grandkids you got?
I have 4. I have really 5. And the 5th one was sent to college, and I didn't know about the 5th one
Is that
for
right?
many years.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How many years?
11. Didn't know about her for about 11 years. But anyway.
Is that a shame? Do you feel bad about that, or is it a good story?
It's nothing like I think it's a good story. She's done extremely well. She's very intelligent, very beautiful, and done extremely well in business. So
she's got some of the Kyle genes.
She's got some of the Kyle genes, and she's done well. And once I found out, I said, well, let's send her to Cleveland State, and then she went to UTC, and then she finished up at UTK. So.
That's a good story, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good story. I think I did something good there.
I think you did.
Yeah.
C.A., you've always been a good guy. You're one of my favorite people.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
I appreciate it.